Hello everybody, so welcome back to another video here on the Jonathan DLR Real Estate Podcast. I need to figure out some better catchy name, but today's topic is going to be helping people buy houses and how it was for me in my experience helping someone buy a house here in Wisconsin. So if you're a new real estate agent or you're thinking about getting into it, here was my experience, because I never had anybody actually walk me through the process and what would happen. Okay, so I started working with this lady, and the first thing I had her fill out was the buyer agency agreement. And what that does is it establishes your commission. It establishes, how long you're going to be working with them, what type of properties, what kind of properties, and you can really just add anything into that agreement. But usually it's what I just said, the commission and the time frame, and what kind of agency they want, and whether they want to be represented by both seller and buyer. And that's just something that is very easily discussed with them. You get that out of the way, that's the first thing you do. Now, some people say, wait a minute, I want to see a house before I sign into anything. There's someone in my office who gives them one freebie. And what that freebie does, it kind of establishes rapport with them, because then if you're a good friend maker and someone that can establish rapport well, you're going to ask them questions, right? And obviously you're trying to be their friend. You're trying to build a relationship. So you're going to ask them why they're thinking of moving, what prompted the move, and then, it's going to be one of many things, and you can talk to them about that. That's why you're in real estate, right? You're there to talk to people, and you're there to help people, and it can be very rewarding too. Okay, so get the buyer's agency agreement out of the way, or you give them the freebie, then you meet at the office or at your place, and then you get the buyer's agency signed. Then what you do is you get them set up on the MLS Collab Center. And what that does, it gives them, and it gives you, a way to set them up with emails as soon as something hits the market, so they don't have to be worried about Zillow, Realtor.com, Trulia, any of these other sites that have homes. They're a couple days late. And when you're a couple days late, especially in a market that is right now, in 2022, and even last year, you need to be on the game really quick. So if you're a buyer, you're going to want to be set up on the Collaboration Center, and those are just quick emails. And now both the realtor and your buyer have to be on top of the game. So if there's a new house that's being listed, you need to be one of the first to go see it, because sometimes the seller wants to sell it right away too. And, they'll get an offer right away because someone's seen it. And what you do is you actually go to the physical house with the buyer, and you see this house together. You walk through it, and obviously you're a realtor. Even if you're starting out, eventually you're going to accumulate more and more houses that you've been inside and that you've toured. And you got to remember, location's everything. So that's one thing. Where is it located? Another thing is how a house is built. Obviously, I'm not a contractor, but you got the roof, and then you got the foundation, and then you got the actual bedrooms and the bathrooms, and then you can have extra stuff too. But when it comes down to it, it's obviously the property and what I just described. So it might have a mud room, it might have a recreational room, it might have this or that. But especially in my area here in Appleton, Oshkosh, Neenah, Kaukauna, that area, the Fox cities, unless you get to Apple Hills or, what's that one island? Doty Island. There's that one other one in Menasha. Strobe Island, I think. Obviously there's other places with the houses get much bigger, but I've been inside, a $500,000 house, and it's It's the four walls, it's a roof, it's the foundation. It's sure there's different styles as well, don't get me wrong. There's different ways it's built, but there's models for houses too, you know. So just how there is for cars. Obviously, I'm not kind of overgeneralizing it, but still, you're going to walk through it with them at a set time. And if they like it, then you write that offer. And I have another video on my channel that kind of walks you through the steps on writing an offer. But, you know, you're going to go through that Wisconsin offer and then all the extra stuff like the addendum A that is recommended that you fill out with. And then there's a few other things, tips and tricks that not everyone in the trade would know to get an offer accepted. And you know what? We're here to provide value, right? And we're here to make sure that you win, I win, everybody wins. If we all win, we're all happier and we're all more prosperous, right? Because even if one person picks something up here and helps someone buy a house, isn't that crazy? Like, that's crazy how that affects, you know, it's like a ripple effect. But anyways, one thing that a lot of people are doing they're writing letters. So they'll have a buyer write a letter, and if you know anything of you know, if you've ever read How to Win Friends and Influence People by Dale Carnegie, one of the main things that people love is when you talk about them. So when your buyer writes that letter, make sure it's structured in a way where, you know, you're talking about them and why they're selling and why it would be a good fit for you, for the buyer, right? And then another thing that's going to be really big in a seller's market is covering a certain amount over the appraised value, and not just from an appraiser in your area. I'm talking about the bank appraisal. And when you write an offer, if you write something contingent upon that, saying my buyer, because at the end of the day, cash is king, right? If you have cash, you're in. And cash versus financing, what type of financing, how much cash. If you have more cash to provide at the very end of the deal, and obviously it's at a certain time, closing, when it needs to happen, then you may have an in. Obviously, at the end of the day, it's going to come out however it comes out. The chips are going to fall how they fall on the table. There's no changing that. But there's things such as covering a certain amount over the appraised value, and you can write that in. You write that in at the very end of the contract. If this property does not appraise out to what it's listed at, buyer is willing to cover X amount, you know, $1,000, $5,000, $10,000. And you put yourself in a position where the listing agent who's helping the seller sell lets the seller know that this may be a better option. So, that's my 2 cents on helping someone buy, and how you're going to be walking through the houses. And sometimes you're going to be walking through a lot, sometimes you're only going to be walking through, you know, a couple. It really depends on the situation of the person. So that's why you ask them questions, and you get to know why they're selling, and then you help them. And then eventually you go to the title company and the title company, what they do is they make sure that the title is clear of anything that might be stopping the closing. So if there's anything where there's money due on the property, that could follow onto the next owner of the property, and you wouldn't want that. So that's why that title search happens. And then there's, you know, gap insurance and whatnot. So there's a few other things that obviously you're gonna have to learn and ask your own firm about. But yeah, that's is that everything? Oh, and then finally, when they sign all the papers and all the mortgage documents, it's going to be usually at a title company where they close, and that's usually a title company is going to be inside a firm. But once you do that, you hand them the keys, and then that's it. You know, they have access to their house, and the closing date was set in the offer with the purchase price and everything that's included, you know, and any other contingencies that, you know, like an inspection or an appraisal, you know, and it can get more complicated. You know, not every situation is the same. Every situation is different. But I hope that helped. I appreciate you guys even checking out the channel, and, you know, make sure to drop a big like, comment down below what your thoughts were and what else you want to see. And then also make sure to subscribe and share. So there's a lot of things you can do, right? Anyways, take care. Hasta la vista, baby.